I'd like to call the General Services Committee to order. And at this time, I would make a motion to accept the October 21st committee minutes. If there are no amendments, could I have a second? Thank you, Tom. And at this time, we're going to have a presentation by Jackie Mahoney, Rail Trail Equestrian, I can't say that word. Acquisition. Thank you.
Can't help that. Can't even blame my parents. They're both shorter than I am. All right, so I'm here to discuss the Trail Initiative Master Plan and our next steps. So, we all know that we've hired Alta to do the master plan, and with that, a lot of questions have come up as for our next steps. So, obviously, we need an overview of the existing conditions. So, they're going to create a GIS base map with the parcel data, adjoining landowners, roads and crossings, utilities, the different soils, the topography, and an aerial assessment. Basically, to give us an idea of what's there. Desktop assessment would be ecologic and endangered species, ground and surface water conditions, wetlands and floodplains, the historic resources of the area. Some of that we already have. We'll be sharing the existing reports that we currently have with Alta. And then they'll be doing an invasive species review and adjoining use. With that, they'll also be doing a field assessment on all the structures and seeing where constraints and the crossings will look like. So the other big portion of what they're going to be doing is the public participation. So we will develop a steering committee and have at least 6 meetings during the process. We're going to have stakeholder engagement, whether this is through the website where we are going to show our transparency of what's going on and what we've seen. Stakeholder focus groups, that might be small meetings with the municipalities, what they want to see, what they want to do, different clubs and uses and things that they would like to see on the trails. And then adjacent property outreach. This is specific to talk to all adjoining landowners to see where we have encroachment issues, where we have crossing issues, and so that we can address every problem that will be coming up as we go through. We'll also be doing some virtual outreach, some podcasts, some surveys, social media, but we're also going to do in-person events, one in each town with their town board meetings, and then some community, just general community meetings as well. And I will say, this is the biggest portion, second biggest portion money-wise of the master plan, because we want the details. We want the public to participate. We want to know what issues that could arise with our adjoining landowners and what ways we can mitigate any issues as they arise. So once we get all that, destination inventory and analysis. So where are we in relation to parks, schools, town centers, community centers? What other trail-oriented development and connections can we make with our trails? And then design considerations. We're not going to design the whole thing. We are going to look at long-range trail maps, where we connect in the future, where else we want to go, and then a design guide and plan as we move ahead. So obviously there's going to be priorities. There's going to be maybe areas that aren't going to be as easy to do. Funding will also be a huge thing. So cost estimates for how we're going to implement the plan, priorities, how we're going to operate it, and how the maintenance should be done will all be included in this plan. And then another big portion of it, will be the emergency preparedness. So that will be working with Bob McKenzie, the sheriff's department, the local fire departments. One, to have a plan in place of when something happens, what will we be doing? And how will we get there? So this is all part of the plan and will come out in the final report. It'll come out in draft form so we all can review before approving the report. But each step is very important. Obviously, we are in an area where we get snow, so maybe we're not going to jump ahead and get the actual physical assessments done right away. We're going to start probably with the community outreach first, getting out there to get what the public would like to see. What does it look like? Where would they like to go? Where else we can connect? Obviously, if this is implemented, we want to connect them to our businesses. We want the schools to use them. We want this to be able to work for everybody. That being said, we are open to suggestions for everything, but that does not mean we can implement everything. So the steering committee will help go through what the public's saying. I will be the face of this, according to Tim. So, I think we're going to put up a comment section on the website that'll go directly probably to both of us so that we can see what's coming in. I'm going to be working hands-on with Alta during this whole process, making sure that we get as much community involvement as we can. Any questions? I would say the master plan will probably take a year. That's what I'm hoping. It might go quicker, but as of right now, I'm figuring it's going to probably be a full year project. And some of that's going to be based on conditions and when we can get out there. Any other questions?
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to have Miss Joan give a presentation on short-term rental loan updates.
So Eric and I are gonna tag
Sorry.
team.
Eric, too.
We distributed just a little while ago to the committee and also to the other board members here, the draft introductory local law to update our bed tax law, as we used to call it. We're gonna, be calling it our occupancy and use tax and registration law. So this will be presented at the December 18th, is it, Cassandra? The December 18th board meeting, which is that morning for the public hearing. That gives the committee and also the other board members time to look over the introductory law. If you have any issues or changes that you think ought to be made, contact me. We can make changes to an introductory law as long as it's published 10 days before we actually have the hearing. So we have some time if you want to make some additional changes to it. And with that, I'll let Eric start through our presentation.
Thank you. So this is about short-term rentals. And as you can see on that first slide, it really does affect a number of our departments. The management of the occupancy tax, and I'll come back to it in a minute, flows through our treasurer's office, but we couldn't do a lot of this without the law office, the building codes, planning. There's really a lot of different departments that touch on what we do with short-term rentals and the occupancy tax. We're going to go through a few different pieces of the puzzle. So that's some of the things we'll talk about. And back to what Joan just mentioned, you have an update, the revised local law. That really is about better occupancy tax. We're going to talk more specifically about short-term rentals today, but that is, the short-term rentals are a part of that occupancy tax law, which started in 2004. We did amend it in 2019 to capture short-term rentals at that time. That was really when that industry started to kind of take off. And now we're going to be making another amendment to that. In about 2024 or even earlier, we started to informally identify short-term rentals. We amended the law in 2019, but we were kind of looking for short-term rental properties to come to us voluntarily. We found out that we needed to go out and reach out to them. So we started doing that. We did some, informal searching on Airbnb, VRBO, et cetera, those websites that advertise short-term rentals. And we started to reach out and contact those businesses to register with us and begin paying their taxes. We, in the Treasurer's Office, have been tracking all of those since the law started way back in 2004. We initially started, and I think this might be on the next slide, but we initially started with hotels, motels, the occupancy that you typically think about, and bed and breakfasts back then. We had 23 of those in the early days of our law. That number started to build with the short-term rentals and with our informal efforts to register more of them. So we are now up to about the 23 original hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, and another 110 short-term rentals. We estimate that today there's another 100 to 150 short-term rentals that exist out there that have not registered with us. So the next efforts are going to be to try and track down those existing properties that are not currently registered. Just for some dollars to think about, in the last 3 to 4 years, we've collected $165,000 to $175,000 a year. It varies obviously from year to year. This year through August, we have $124,000 collected. So we are on track to exceed the past few years by a little bit. I think maybe $10,000 to $20,000 will grow that number this year. Joan, you want to talk about some of the law specifics?
Yeah. So in 2024, a bill was presented to amend the local law to allow for a statewide registry of short-term rentals and to further define the definition of that. That law was amended in 2025 and then signed into law by the governor in early 2025, in February, actually. And that significantly changed the real property tax law. In fact, it created a whole new section in the real property tax law, section 447, which deals specifically with the registry that the state will have and which counties can opt into, and which we are recommending that our county do. And it also changed some of the tax laws that are affected by short-term rentals as well. In order to opt out of having to comply with the state's registry, the county would have to pass a local law to do so by June 22nd of 2026. Again, as we go through this, you'll see why we're recommending that our county opt into it. Under that registry, the short-term rental units must register, and in order for a booking platform to help a short-term rental unit owner in Lewis County to operate, they must be registered. The booking service is not supposed to assist anybody who is not registered on our registry. So that may help us gather those other 100 to 150 units that we think are out there for them to pay their fair share. And this is all about making sure that anybody who is renting units out, everybody is paying their fair share. And that's really part of it. The registration through the state does require certain safety requirements of anybody who operates a short-term rental unit, and that includes having some insurance, although they can have if they register with the booking service, they can have the booking service provide the insurance. They have to comply with having a fire extinguisher, having an egress diagram up there and other local requirements that our municipalities may want somebody to have if they're renting out a unit. Also, if the zoning is not there by a local town or village to allow for a short-term rental, then you will not be able to register. We did talk about this earlier, I think with the committee and with others. We are trying to encourage people to register, so we're not necessarily looking to have the county charge a fee for the registration right now. Maybe in the future, it's something that we would consider doing. And what we can include in figuring out that fee is the cost to the county and in providing the registry and having the website and hiring a company to help us do that, having codes go out and inspect some of these properties. So it's something that we'll look at and monitor maybe down the line to see how much time and expense is being maintained by the county in developing the registry and maintaining it. The other thing about the law is that you can be registered for 2 years. You have to then re-register if you're going to continue to operate a short-term rental unit. And you have the host and a booking service, if you have a booking service, have to keep the records for 2 years. So we'll move on. You want to talk about opting in?
Yes. So,
Since you were thinking about that.
so Joan mentioned this a little bit. We have the option if we're going to opt in or opt out. From all of our internal work on this, we are recommending that the county opt in to be included as part of the state law and the requirements under the state law. And I won't hit all those bullet points, but basically if we opt in, that means we are covered by the state law and all the regulations that come with it. And as I think is highlight a couple things Joan said, once we opt in, the businesses, the properties are required to join our registry, get an occupancy tax certificate with us, and pay us the occupancy tax. And on the flip side, the booking services, the Airbnb, VRBOs, they are not allowed to advertise for those properties if those properties are not registered. So that's a really key piece of this. We have to maintain a registry. As I mentioned earlier, we started this and our registry is an Excel document, just listing out all of those 100 and some properties. We are going to be transitioning to a online software. So that's going to be our registry in the future. We're required to share that data with New York State, with the booking services, and with our towns and villages in Lewis County, so they're aware of what properties are in their municipality. Some other key things with being opted in is that we can lean on the state for enforcement. The Attorney General's office can assist with enforcement of the things that are defined in the law, including fines and penalties if it comes to that.
I would just also add, if we opt in, just because the state has some enforcement mechanisms, which to me are not that significant, except that it's another entity that registrations know that they have to comply with the state as well. But we have significant enforcement mechanisms that we put in our local law, and you'll see that in what we handed out. And they're not exclusive to one another. We can use the ability of the state to help, but we can also do enforcement on the local level at the same time.
We could choose to opt out, which we would have to do by local law by June 22nd. If we do opt out, some of those requirements that are in the state law would not apply, such as the safety standards, et cetera. And if we do opt out, we could continue to collect occupancy tax. It's our local law on the occupancy tax. So we continue to do that, but it just, we don't have some of those other benefits of opting in. We would have to, for example, enter agreements with Airbnb, VRBO to have them share data with us and to have them ensure that they pay us the occupancy taxes that they're collecting for those properties. So again, with opting in, we have the enforcement that comes behind that. where are we? As I mentioned, we're moving forward with a software program with a company called Deckard. Deckard was recommended by NISAC. We have been working with them for 2 or 3 months now. We expect to go live with our registration next month in a few weeks. So that'll be a very good next step. By when we go live, we will be sending out mailing information to all of those properties that have not currently registered. 100 plus will be getting mailings in the month of December. What Deckard is creating is an online portal where those property owners are going to go online and register their properties and register to collect and pay us occupancy tax. So that's the next step there. Early in 2026, we're going to go back and have all of the existing properties go through the same thing. So they are currently registered with us, but we're going to have them go into this new software system and register officially through that system. All of those properties then in the future would pay online. They will pay through that platform. So that will be a good enhancement for us for sure. We talked about most of this, but we're recommending that we opt in. Our local law, which Joan has presented and which will be up for the public hearing on December 18th, it's been revised to ensure we cover all of the things in the state law. And we're implementing that registry. And then in the future, we'll begin to share the data with the state, with the towns and villages, et cetera.
If I can just add one thing, going back to what the registry requires in terms of compliance with local building code laws and all, our codes department was, of course, concerned about having to go out and inspect every one of these properties that have to register, and they have to do so within a certain time period. But we have the ability, and it's in the state law as well, where we can have the applicants self-attest to the fact that they have these things in place. So that gives us the ability to rely on their statement, number one, and number two, that gives codes some flexibility in time to go out and visit these properties over the course of a number of months and not have to do it all on one date. So, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for our codes department and also for the registrants to comply and just make sure that they do so by their attestation.
Questions? Don't believe, I don't know if John's here, but don't believe they have to be ADA compliant to, for our local law or for the state law. They have to meet building code requirements, but I don't believe those require.
I know you have to be.
I don't think they'll have to be. We'll have to look into some of that, but if they're not changing occupancy.
But that's something else we should look into as well, just to get a definitive answer on it. And it may be something that the state wants to look into down the line, because again, it's a new law. They've already pushed back some dates as to when these booking services have to comply, because it just all hit at in a short period of time. So I'm sure that those issues are also going to come up, and between codes and our department, we'll be able to address it as it comes up.
Thank you, Joan and Eric. And we're ready for draft resolution.
The first one is authorizing a 3-year elevator service agreement between Buildings and Grounds Department and Elevate It to service 4 elevators and 1 chairlift in the courthouse building at a cost of $12,000 in 2026, $12,600 in 2027, and $13,230 in 2028.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Amending compensation plan of the Department of Fire and Building Codes to abolish 1 full-time senior code enforcement officer position and create 1 full-time code enforcement officer position effective immediately.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Authorizing the budget transfer of $4,979.52 from contingency to emergency management accounts to cover the cost of one grain bin rescue kit to be utilized by all Lewis County Fire Departments.
Any discussion? I think this is a great thing. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom.
Where will it be located?
Right now, we're in between. As of today, we're gonna be locating it either in Loudville or we will be locating it up in Martinsburg. That's where the majority of the grain bins are in this county, and that's also will be a deployable resource and readily available anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Amending compensation plan of the Department of Highway to create 2 full-time motor equipment operator trainee positions effective immediately.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Carried.
Authorizing master agreement with New York State Department of Transportation for the construction phase of County Route 17, also known as the Wood Battle Road over Cobb Creek, to pay in the first instance 100% of the cost of construction and inspection phase for the project for portions thereof, with the understanding that qualified costs may be eligible for federal aid, state aid, or reimbursement from Bridge New York funds, and to appropriate $3,356,843 in the Capital Bridge Program to facilitate said project.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Carried.
Authorizing supplemental agreement number 1 between Lewis County Highway and Barton and LaJudas to provide additional engineering services for the design and construction phases regarding the bridge replacement project identified as County Route 17, also known as Wood Battle Road over Cobb Creek, for a term of July 2nd, 2023 through December 31st, 2027, for an additional amount not to exceed $287,000.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Updating appointments to the Lewis County Rail Trail Advisory Committee and subcommittees.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Reappointing Wendy Mosier of Glenfield, New York as a Lewis County Sportsman's Representative Member of the Region 6 Fish and Wildlife Management Board to serve a 2-year term effective January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2027.
Any discussion?
Sports person.
Sports person, not a sportsman. All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Authorizing intermunicipal agreements for control of snow and ice removal and treatment on certain winter recreation parking facilities with such towns and villages as the Lewis County Director of Recreation, Forestry, and Parks deems appropriate, in accordance with the rate of 0.0624 per square foot from the period of October 2025 through April 30th, 2026, with an opt-out option which needs to be submitted by May 1st of each year.
Any discussion?
Andrea, there's also a 4% increase on that rate over each year thereafter. So that's in the IMAs.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Authorizing the appropriation within the snowmobile trails account to reflect the 2025-2026 snowmobile trail grant award in the amount of $346,000.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Authorizing the budget transfer of $18,499 from within solid waste account lines, utilizing unspent funds for equipment acquisition to cover the cost of unanticipated vehicle repairs.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
reappointing members Mackenzie, Marchion, and Ortlib to the Lewis County Traffic Safety Board to serve a 3-year term beginning on January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Designating Lawrence L. Dolhoff as the Lewis County responsible local official with respect to New York State Department of Transportation projects and naming John Reed, Lewis County Superintendent of Highways, as the alternate.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
Introductory local law number 8-2025, a local law amending and replacing local law number 6-2019, a local law imposing a tax on occupants of hotel or motel rooms and other short-term rentals in Lewis County, and setting the public hearing for December 18th, 2025 at 10:00 a.m.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any nays? Carried.
That's it for dockets.
I have no motions and there's no executive session. Could I have a motion to adjourn? I'll make the motion to adjourn. Could I have a second? Thanks, Jeff. We're adjourned.
I'm going to call the committee meeting for Human Services to order. I will make a motion to approve the October 21st committee minutes if no amendments. Do I have a second? Barry, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. We are going to start with the presentation, Community Health Improvement Plan, and I'm going to invite Ashley Waite, Director of Public Health, forward to make the presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So to just connect the dots for you guys, last month I was here presenting the community health assessment for Lewis County. And at the end of that presentation, we discussed 5 potential priorities for us to focus on for the next 5 years. So these are the 5 priorities that have been chosen not just by myself, but by my entire department, as well as all of the health and human service agencies here in Lewis County. And the purpose of the presentation today is to go into some detail in regard to potential interventions we would be looking to implement over the next 5 years with the help of our community partners, to hopefully make some change in these specific health priorities. So I'm going to go through one by one. There's one slide per priority. And on there, there's the intervention that's directly from the New York State Prevention Agenda, which, if you'll remember from last month, is the framework that we need to work within. So these are evidence-based strategies that we had to choose from. And then the smaller bullet point there is the specific intervention within that broader intervention. And then smaller yet are the partners that we plan to work with if we move forward with these interventions. And I'll just start by saying, this is up for discussion. If you feel strongly about something that it should not be included or that something else might be beneficial and we should look into, please provide me that feedback. And I also want to say this is not the only work that public health will be doing for the next 5 years. This is simply a small snippet that we need to submit to the state and call our community health improvement plan. But there's a wealth of other work that's done on a day-to-day basis at public health. So the first priority is housing stability and affordability. The first intervention we would propose would be a community assessment regarding housing, rentals, and navigation support here in Lewis County, which we already have a very good jump start on, as we've just recently concluded a housing survey that I believe you're going to hear from Joel next on. We've conducted a few focus groups. We've got some pretty good data regarding housing. So now looking at that data with a housing committee to help address the support needs that we have here in Lewis County. And I'll also just remind you that the reason we picked this was because Lewis County was the highest in our region for reporting housing insecurity. The next intervention we would be looking to implement is improving knowledge of and access to community land trust that decrease mortgage payments and cost burdens to low and middle class families. So a land bank is an evidence-based intervention that would fit under that. And the Lewis County Planning Department has been in the start of that work. So that would be something that we would be looking to support over the next 5 years. And the final is collaborate with new and current partners to increase access to safe and affordable housing. So either establishing a housing committee or maybe just utilizing the Fair Housing Committee, and having partners work together to really look at all of our available resources and programs that we already have. What are the opportunities for increased housing here in Lewis County, and then making those things happen. Any questions on housing? Okay, the next priority is anxiety and stress. Again, this was chosen due to our high rates of mental distress in the last 30 days reported by adults when they are going to their healthcare providers. And the interventions are as follows. So the first one is really focusing on our youth, promoting and expanding school-based social emotional learning to teach youth skills needed to handle stress, resolve conflict, and manage emotions and behaviors. So there's a couple of different approaches here. We'd be looking to work with the schools to build upon the social emotional learning that they already have in their schools, as well as continuing to bring the Gizmo's Possum Guide to Mental Health, which the Suicide Prevention Coalition has been bringing to the schools for the last, I think it's 3 years now, which is a book that's read to all third graders, really teaching them what mental health is, why it's important, and things they can do to help increase their resiliency. The next would be the mental health first aid course training, which we've been doing here in Lewis County for some time. And it's really focused towards individuals working with adults and youth and teaching them skills to help whoever they're working with increase their mental health wellness. And the next is something new that we would be looking to do. So promote and increase awareness of evidence-based mindfulness resources to reduce negative impact of stress and trauma. So the Credible Minds app is an online platform and app that's utilized by local health departments, health systems, insurance companies, and employers across the nation to increase access to mental health resources, including our local resources and self-care approaches. So it serves as a preventative measure by increasing mental well-being and resilience, and also an enhancement to current treatment measures by empowering individuals to work on personal development outside of their treatment. So this is really a benefit for all community members. As a local health department signing on with them, it would be all Lewis County residents that would be able to have access to this platform. We would be able to customize it with our own local mental health resources. But then the other side of it is also, you can think of it, I don't know if any of you have utilized the Calm app or Headspace or any other app that's really geared toward building your own personal resilience against stress and trauma, helping you to manage stress, because we all know that's not going away anytime soon. And then the final intervention there is promoting resilience building strategies by enhancing protective factors such as independence, social support, positive explanatory styles, self-care, self-esteem, and reduced anxiety. And this is perfectly our Getting Ahead program, the Getting Ahead While Getting Out, and also the Screenagers project that the Youth Bureau is doing with all of our schools here in Lewis County. Do all of you know what our Getting Ahead program is? Okay. So Getting Ahead is a 16-week program for individuals living in poverty or coming from poverty, and really teaching them about building resources. So social resources, financial resources, maybe obtaining a job. We've had a lot of success here in Lewis County with that. Bridges Lewis County is the entity that heads that up. And that is something that we would be looking to continue over the next 5 years. Any questions on anxiety and stress?
Yeah, one.
Yep.
Do the county employees have annual mandatory training? Just anything? Huh? Yeah. Oh, yes. Could that adult mental health first aid, could that be a module that everybody could go through it?
We've already had quite a few of our
Okay.
county employees that regularly interface with the public go through that. Certainly not 100% of our county employee population, but I would say the most important have been trained, and it's something that we continue to bring, and we bring in county employees as well as other agencies to get them trained in that. Okay, suicide, again, due to our high suicide rates, all of this work has really been done, but it's something that we're going to continue to do. So the first is our gatekeeper trainings. Those are trainings for a variety of groups, but really empowering individuals to know what to do when they experience somebody who has thoughts of suicide, how to help them, how to refer them, and be comfortable with those conversations, because we all know that those are not easy conversations at all. The next is implementing the Lock and Talk program, which is lethal means reduction. And we've been working with the Sportsman's Club here locally to distribute gun locks, and working with the gun safety community to really get the messaging out there about properly storing your firearms, and also getting the messaging out about suicide prevention resources. And then next is improving availability and access to relevant suicide prevention information through outreach and education. Our Suicide Prevention Coalition does a fantastic job about getting out there, getting messaging out there, going to events, and we've really grown as a coalition, and I believe our presence within the community is more known than it's ever been. And then promoting calling or texting 988 through a media campaign. And just to piggyback on that, 988 would be one of the services on the Credible Minds app, should we choose to go down that road as well. And then adverse childhood experiences. This is due to our high rates of child abuse in the county, as well as adults reporting 2 or more adverse childhood experiences. The first thing we would do is partnering with NCPPC to really promote referrals and engagement in their Healthy Families program. That's a program that's been around for a few years now. And it's really, it's a home visiting program for women who are pregnant and all the way up until the child turns age 5. It's really building positive parent-child attachment, as well as building resilience in the families, preventing child abuse, neglect, and those adverse childhood events. And then the next is integrating principles of trauma-informed approaches in the workforce. So that's workforce training, becoming a trauma-informed culture. So we'd be looking to work with the health system, government agencies, community-based organizations, and bringing them training so that individuals who are interacting with families or really any resident is trained on trauma, because we know that that certainly affects our health, as well as our mental health, all sorts of things, everything basically. So our partner for that would be FDR-HPO. They are currently applying for a grant to do trauma-informed training, specifically in the education and healthcare sectors. So they would be a partner we would be looking to work with over the next 5 years for that. Any questions on childhood trauma? Okay, and then finally, our smoking interventions, because again, we continue to have a growing rate of adults that are smoking. We'd be looking to focus on our youth and work with Pivot specifically. They'll be receiving our Jewel settlement funding. So we'd be looking to increase prevention efforts, as well as potentially taking a more active role in the cessation efforts here in the county after doing an assessment of what the barriers are to seeking cessation treatment. So is it time? Is it confidentiality, lack of knowledge, or maybe just lack of desire? So again, working in the schools, but also working in the community with individuals who are currently smoking to try to get them to stop.
Ashley, can I ask you
Yes.
something about that?
Yes.
So we've seen in our office, there's a lot of vaping going on, especially with the youth in the
Yes.
schools.
Mhm.
So is there something in particular that will be addressed to try to reach?
Yes, so the Jewel settlement funding specifically needs to focus on vaping prevention education. So that's going to be a large part of what Pivot does within the schools, within the community. And there's funding behind it, so that will certainly help. It's hard to do things when there's no funding behind it. Okay. Any questions on any of that or anything else that you would like to see us add to any of these priorities?
Do you have a program for, is that on? Do
Mhm.
you have a program for homebound suicides? Is there any program in place to monitor or help people who are homebound?
Specifically for suicide prevention?
Yeah,
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, if they're connected to services,
mhm.
yes, but not that I'm aware of. Is there like a specific?
Well, I'm thinking the elderly that are homebound, like you've got texting and whatever. Most of them are like me, incompetent to do any of that.
Yep,
That there's no outreach to them. There should be an outreach to them somehow.
yep.
I think OFA has something to a certain extent, but I mean, there's no set guidelines or program, is there, Carla?
Virtual options, but as
Right.
you said, technology.
Something to think about.
Yep, that could actually be something that I look at.
Something to that effect, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, we will move on to our draft resolutions. Cassandra? Okay, the first draft resolution is being withdrawn. So I will go from there. Authorizing a budget transfer of $38,400 from jail to community services to cover the cost of an inmate's expenses at an OMH forensic facility.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Reappointing Musnicki, Jones, and Ross as members of the Hospital Board of Managers to serve a 5-year term effective January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2030.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Appointing Teresa Ho of Lowell, New York as the District Number 4 representative to the Office for Aging Advisory Council to serve a 3-year term effective January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Reappointing Bango, Ross, and Corellis as members of the Office for Aging Advisory Board to serve a 3-year term effective January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Authorizing the annual renewal agreements between Office for Aging and Northern New York Senior Services, also known as Seniors Helping Seniors, to provide housekeeping, chore, and/or respite services to designated elderly residents in Lewis County that are homebound, ill, or disabled and who have been accepted into care by OFA at a cost not to exceed $34 per hour.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Authorizing a 2-year renewal agreement between Office for Aging and Double Play Community Center to provide a congregate site for OFA's nutrition program for eligible seniors at a cost of $1,600 per month for a total of $19,200 annually.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Authorizing an agreement between Probation Social Services and Rubenzoll Knutson and Associates Psychological Services to provide sex offender evaluations, counseling services for individuals or families, attachment parenting classes, psychological evaluations, and treatment for juvenile delinquents or adolescent offenders when required.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Reappointing Dr. Rogie and Dr. Ziegler as members of the Lewis County Health Services Advisory Committee to serve a 4-year term effective January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2029.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between Sheriff's Office and Black Creek Integrated Systems Corporation for maintenance and support of the inmate database software and watch tour manager software in an amount not to exceed $28,530.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
Authorizing agreement between Social Services and Law Department to provide legal representation on family court matters, child support enforcement proceedings, collection of overpayments, or recovery of assets in certain programs that provide financial support to Lewis County citizens in adult protective proceedings.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried.
And the last one is appropriating adult and dislocated worker program funds in the amount of $121,783.32 in accordance with the Notice of Obligational Authority issued on July 31st, 2025 by the New York State Department of Labor.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Carried. We do not have any motions or a need for an executive session, so I will make a motion for an adjournment. Do I have a second? Tom? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.
call the Finance and Rules Committee to order. First thing we have is I make a motion to approve the October 21st committee minutes if there are no amendments. Do I have a second? Benny? All in favor? Approved. Now we have a presentation on a housing survey results by Cassandra Buell, Director of Planning and Community Development, and Joel Alon, Director of JCC Center for Community Studies.
Take it away.
Hi, yes, I'm Joel, and thank you for the introduction, and hello to several of you ladies and gentlemen in the room. I don't know that I've met, so as you'll see with this PowerPoint presentation I plan on doing for the next 20 or so minutes, I decided, anticipating there'd be folks here who I hadn't met, to do a little bit of the history and who we are and what we do. And then it'll jump right into how did we collect what we did. And I'm sure you're all looking at Where's Waldo, wondering if you're up there. I couldn't resist that picture on, oh, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. That's not Bostwick. That's the one that goes perpendicular to Bostwick. Is that State Street? Okay, good. I knew in July that that was called State Street. And if you look, all right, Connor, I'm going to give it a shot right now. Right over there, that is a clipboard, and that gentleman's Where's Waldo right there. He's filling out one of our surveys, and I don't know that you can probably see, but right there, that is one of my students, Marissa, that's hiding behind those two people are also doing surveys. So you'll see a few more Where's Waldo questions like this as we talk about our data collection throughout this. But again, this is a housing needs assessment adult survey. And my understanding, and folks here in the room, especially I just heard Ashley talk at length about housing as one of the public health initiatives. And I thought I saw, yes, Jenny Jones here along with Cassie. They are, I'm sure, greater experts on housing and the specifics of housing in your county than I would claim to be. I'm more knowledgeable than I was 4 months ago for sure. But you will see that we supplemented many different data collection processes that I understand you've done over the last few years. Whether it's looking at buildings in your county, whether it's hiring architects, whether it's looking at census data and doing those forms of community needs assessment. My understanding is the one thing that had not been accomplished is getting what I think is crucially important in any part of a community and a society, and that is to get public opinion, public behavior, public attitude, public support to get public input. So that was our goal. You're going to hear me talk about that we at the Center for Community Studies, 2 for 2, Connor. I got both these buttons right. We at the Center for Community Studies, really quickly, for those of you that hadn't met me before, and there's another Where's Waldo, you can see, by the way, can't resist. I enjoy this way too much. Right there are Marissa and Corey, my 2 students who are working that day, and lots of folks filling out surveys there over on State Street. We at the Center for Community Studies were created at JCC in 1999, and we continue to be the only community college in the United States that has a public opinion research institute. We're the only one of the 64 SUNY schools. So Stony Brook, Albany, probably some of you are grads of Potsdam, Oswego, Buffalo, Albany Law School may be sitting in this room. They don't have a public opinion research institute. We're the only one in New York State that's a state school. Siena, I'm sure you've heard of, and Marist you've heard of, still do. So anyways, we are supposed to do 2 things. And the 2 things are to do community-based research. That's what I'm here today with you about. Last Wednesday night, we did a forum that you may have seen in the media on new advanced nuclear energy technology and education. Those are the 2 things we try to do. And you'll see down here, there's me, and I won't hit the button. There's Larry and there's Andy. They're both in classes back at JCC right now, so they couldn't come with us. Dr. Dupuy, our president, and our board of directors, that's what really is our little community-based research institute. And I have to tell you, we love working with Lewis County. You folks in the leadership elected positions are way better than the other counties. And I'll go on the record of saying that, and I know you're doing it live stream, in one context, not in all contexts. But in the context of feeding Andy and Larry and I questions that you would like to learn, Lewis County takes advantage of the uniqueness of having a community-based research institute that really lives there and cares about what we study and learn. So please keep up the great work as topics come up. And you know that we're doing a free with no invoice to you omnibus survey that we do twice a year. Let us know what you'd like to learn and we love to help out. So there's repeating what I just said to you. We do community-based research and public forums. There it is over on Bostwick, and that's my finger up there. My finger or my thumb. I didn't want to crop that out because I knew Anna Platts would be here and enjoy me showing my age and lack of ability to use my cell phone that well. But that front lawn in Bostwick, I had 2 students that stayed there for an hour and a half and could not get away from your residents of people lining up to fill out this survey. And so those are the 2 things that we do. Please notice the community-based research comes in 2 ways, and hopefully I've got this timed right, where we do 2 types of clients. The top one up there, the community-based research that has no contract, no client, we do as a community service. That's what I'm talking about. You folks have fed us questions for years. But we also do ones under contract, and that's just a small sample down at the bottom of local agencies that we've worked with in the last 2 or 3 years, trying to collect data so that they can make data-driven decisions. And that was a beautiful picture at the beginning of the parade. I'm sure a whole bunch of you folks saw that. So now I transition from cranberry, our colors at JCC, talking about us, to talking about you, green. Here is your study. And as I said, my understanding is there have been many other local studies done over the last 5 or so years. But the goals of this study, forgive me for reading at you, the Community Housing Needs Assessment Study is an attempt to collect and analyze data to better understand their attitudes, opinions, preferences, and current situations regarding available housing. We wanted to find out what the residents thought. The methodology that we used, you can see I already inserted a bunch of the Where's Waldo pictures. That's called intercept sampling, meet them where they are. And we talked to folks and they actually old-fashioned on clipboards filled out the survey for us. But we also did, some of you may have gotten on the bottom left, an email. We have a panel of email addresses, anonymous. We don't know who we're sending them to. And you can see in my description over here, if I can get this to work, sorry, wrong one. We had 729 total people who filled it out, 315 actually at the Lewis County Fair. You saw the pictures. 170 by email, and the other 244 amazing. We have about 7,000 cell phone numbers for your county, of adults in your county. And we'll send a text message with a link embedded in there with gaining all kinds of voluntary informed consent. Yes, this follows all human subject rights law. And we are 10 DLC certified to do this. 244 folks filled that out. So if you add those up, 729. Back in September, I presented a paper at Washington State University, way out in Pullman, Washington, and I talked about you. I didn't talk about housing because hadn't rolled out the results yet. That's today. But what I talked about was the incredible desire for being community engaged, participant, voice your opinion that we see in Lewis County that surpasses other places that we've studied and other places throughout the nation. Don Levy, a good friend of mine from Siena, he does 800 whenever he does one of those Siena polls of the entire state. 729. I kept texting Cassie and saying, I can't believe what we're experiencing right now. People are completing this survey and letting us know what their attitudes are, what their satisfactions are, what their suggestions are. So in terms of the science, it stands for itself there. That's best practices in the industry. And 729 is a great sample size. So after the methodology, I transitioned to, if you were curious, and I know those numbers might be very small for people back on the other side of this fence behind me, but those of you who are sitting up front, those are all of the demographics. I would say that's about the most expansive set of demographics that Cassie and Jenny and her committee, their committee came up with. Ask all of these different things so that we know you have a representative sample. Like, we want to make sure this sample isn't all Republicans, nor all Democrats, nor all males, nor all females, and so on. So that's the distribution of what we captured. Some of you might be very interested in, the first time I've ever done a study in 25 years and over 200 studies we've done, that we actually did our best. We did not ask people, what district do you live in? Because people, as much as you might think they can't answer that very well. They're guessing. They say, I don't know. But we did ask them their town. So we did our best estimate of the districts, and you can see the representation of, you have 10 districts, 729 people. If it was perfectly uniformly distributed, we'd have 72.9 people from each one of those 10 districts. And what you can see is that District 8, see the only 29? That was the one out of there that we had probably, the least representation of folks that would participate, but still 29 of them. And then we had also, what you see in these black tables are two things: representativeness of the sample, and it gives people like me, math geeks, all kinds of ability to go to questions like this. And I want to compare the men to the women. Well, I have the ability now because I have 234 men and 418 women. I want to compare the older to the younger, compare the high socioeconomic status to the low. So again, what I want you to see is that's a well-constructed survey by your workforce or task force or committee. I'm not sure, Jenny, what you call the group was that you have, but the knowledgeable people locally, that was what they came up with as demographics. And now we finally finished my presentation with, what about the results? Look at that on State Street. It was just insane to me, the number of people doing the survey as they were waiting for the parade to start, it was just crazy. So I think my next slide even shows you, there are 6 sections of over 100 questions. I said to Cassie and to Jenny several times, wow, 100 questions is a lot. But technically, when we read the 8 different villages in your county, and we ask for each one of those 8 villages, do you support or oppose this potential policy? That's not one question. That's 8 questions, because they say yes or no, support or oppose to each one of the 8. And if you add them all up, folks that were filling it out by the clipboard, filling it out online, were answering over 100 questions for you, for me. But those 100 questions become 6 sections. I'll stop talking at you so fast and let you absorb as I talk slow. We did ask about their current housing situation. Single family, apartment, mobile home, 1 question. We did ask about, what about your preferences? If you could choose, where would you prefer? What type of housing? Then we asked some questions on current housing costs and affordability. Things like your opinion on affordability are easier for folks like me to measure. Things like, what is your monthly expense for your mortgage, for your taxes, sounds like it's really easy to measure until you ask someone. And they're like, well, I don't really know, my partner pays for it, or it varies by month. But we did our absolute best, and Jenny and Cassie will remember a day that I Zoomed with you, and we went through and said, this is an impossible answer that someone just gave us. I do not believe their internet costs $20,000 in a month. So we had to make decisions of purging and cleansing the data. And as much as that might have been $200 a month and they left out the decimal point, 200.00, it's too late now and it's anonymous. We don't know. Purge, get it out of there. Don't let the 20,000 be an outlier. So as you get down to number 4, 5, and 6, it's getting into the body of information where it's asking support, opposition, perceived importance amongst your residents, your constituents, on affordable and or supportive housing in Lewis County. So I have 6 slides. Maybe that's a lie. There might be 7. But there's the first one. 3.0.1, the current housing situation. I wouldn't think that would fall in the group of surprising to you, that 86% of the folks who filled it out said, I live in a single family home. That's not true if we did this in Putnam County or Rockland County or even Broome County or Onondaga County. But in your county, that is the distribution of what folks said to us they live in. And again, that's already been weighted for gender, age, education, not race. And here it was gender, age, education, military affiliation, and there might be one more I'm forgetting, the classic weight factors. So that's their current situations. Their preferences, please look blue, gray, green, lighter green. Those are 4 different questions on the survey, which best describes what you prefer. So notice the 86% goes up, not dramatically huge or anything, but it goes up to 90% say that's what I'd prefer. Does it shock you? Is there someone who's willing to say, just to interrupt me and say, yeah, that makes sense? Or, wow, that shocks me. That 3 out of every 4, would you prefer to live inside a village or more rural outside a village? That's the exact wording of the question. Shock you, Eric? Does it surprise you that 3 out of every 4 prefer the rural? And remember, we got 300 people that we were doing it in what you would call your urban setting. We were on State in Bostwick in Lowville. But that's what folks said. If they had to choose, I'd prefer to be outside a village. There's the ideal number of bedrooms and ideal number of bathrooms. And I can remember, ladies, as we were talking about that survey question, I don't know if that's shocking to you or to any folks here. This is, again, what would you prefer? Clearly, as I said, in the appendices to this report, let me just pick the question on bedrooms. If you were curious, what do folks who are older versus younger think about that question, number of bedrooms? What do folks who live in Krogan versus live in Turin think about that? What do folks who are highly educated versus low educated? Those are all answered and provided, and I could stay here for 6 hours to make it through all of that with you, and I know you wouldn't want me to, but I want you to know that's available. So section 2, then, continuing the housing preferences, where do you see the blue bars at the top? There were 8 different things. So that's technically 8 survey questions. For each one of them, they were asked, how important is it to you? And if you notice way down at the bottom in the parentheses, that's the distribution of very important. What jumps out at me there is broadband, internet access, and yard space were the 2 ones that were most commonly indicated as very important to me, as compared to, look at the things further on the right. Access to public transportation did not resonate. They did not say it's very important. Now, they might have said somewhat or not that, but I pulled out of here for a comparison the very important, because 75% of the folks said internet access is important, very important to them. Then let me get it correct, accessory dwelling units. Thank you. Got the thumbs up from both the experts back there, because you just really quickly start calling them ADU, and then you go, what does the A stand for in ADU anymore? So the accessory dwelling units, the small independent homes in the same property as a single family home. The first question on the left asked, how interested are you in living in one? The second one was, how interested are you in creating one? And what do I see out of both of those? If you take very, somewhat, and let me even fold in the a little, you see where I am right down there. If I take the very, somewhat, and a little, that's saying 19 and another 9, if I'm reading right, about, 19 and 9, 28. Call it 3 out of every 10. Call it 1 out of every 4. It's up to you as the elected officials and all of you as community members and leaders to decide, is 30%, close to 30%, a large enough percent for us to say that demonstrates we should pursue further. That's certainly not my decision to make. What my decision is to say the one on the left is interested in living. The one on the right is, how about creating it at your home? And you can see it's very similar. That one actually adds up to 30%. So that's the set of questions on ADU. I think we asked one more question later about, I even have to look at it to get it. I want to say alternative, and it's accessory dwelling unit. So I'm going to call it ADU for the rest of the time. And that means I don't know what ADU stands for. All right. So the next one is, this is the housing costs. So what you can see in figure 5 on the top left, 1 out of every 5 folks says I pay rent. Well, clearly it wasn't 1 out of every 5 to say I live in an apartment. So that suggests, and it certainly makes sense, that there are folks who are in single family homes renting them. So 1 out of every 5 pays rent. And you see the distribution amongst the gray and green of the homeowner. More say I have a mortgage, slightly more, 43%, than say my mortgage is all paid off. But it's very close to equally distributed. Therefore, what I did, and I didn't ask you, Jenny and Cassie, but I hope you're okay with this. I took all of the costs and I broke it into those same 3 groups. And the bottom line is the one main thing I would suggest you look at. This is the total monthly housing cost for people who are renting. So that's averaging what the monthly rent cost is amongst the 20%. So that'd be about 150 or 160 people who said I rent. 150 or 160 people. That's the average rent that they said. That's the average they say for utilities, and that's the average for internet. Where obviously somebody can't have a $20,000 a month internet bill. And if you add those 3 up, you get about $900. If you take the people who, Connor, I think this works. I don't know about your people online, but I think the pointer works, the spotlight. So this is the people who do have a mortgage. And then it's saying, what about their heat, their internet? And so The gray ones are looking for people who own their home and have a mortgage. And the reason there's fewer green ones are those are the people who own their home but have paid off their mortgage. Certainly didn't shock me, Jenny or Cassie, that the people who still are paying off a mortgage, that's their overall, including property taxes, including maintenance. If they give an annual maintenance, we divide it by 12 to get a monthly contribution, about $2,100. And the people who are living in a home they own but don't have to pay a mortgage anymore, they still have taxes, they still have upkeep, they still have maintenance. They are about $1,000 a month. So is that perfectly the most clean data? I mean, if I went around this room right now and if I asked each one of you, are you right or left-handed or ambidextrous? Unless I think you're going to lie to me, I think I have very clean data that you can each tell me that. As I said before, anyone who says, you know, is Ashley still here? One of the worst questions that we ever have to ask, we as survey researchers, sounds simple to Ashley. But Ashley's not out studying humans like I am every day. Because you see, humans are not trees. Trees don't get tired. Trees don't lie to you. Trees don't get disinterested and distracted. Trees, if I want to measure the diameter of a tree or the amount of sap coming out of a tree, then I don't have the human element. But if I go to humans on behalf of Ashley and I say, can you tell me and describe your health insurance? Oh my God. People don't know whether they have health insurance or not. And if they do have health insurance, they don't know who it's through. You get answers like, yeah, I have a lot of it. Or my partner deals with that. Or I think I used to have that. They don't know the difference between Medicaid and Medicare. It sounds like a question in your world, because you understand it so well, should be simple. Go out and ask the people who live on Bosworth Street, and it's not quite as simple. Housing costs the same way. So we spent a lot of time cleansing this data, and I stand behind it, but there is no such thing as perfection. So 3.4, here's where we get into the Jenny and Cassie questions on affordability. First, blue question. How affordable is it? Very unaffordable up through to very affordable. Clearly, the unaffordable end, 22 and 35 is 57. 27 and 3 is 30. By a 2-to-1 ratio, people are twice as likely to say it's unaffordable as they are to say affordable. Would they be willing to pay a premium for energy efficient or sustainable housing? 14% said yeah, 37%, almost triple that, said no, and 49% of course said it depends. Just like the study you might have seen that we rolled out last week at the college on nuclear energy. If we just ask the question, do you support or oppose? You pigeonhole people into making a decision that oftentimes that's not really the right answer. The right answer is, I need to learn more about it before I can confidently decide. Your folks in the light green, it looks to me, would need to know more about that paying a premium for energy efficiency before they could decide. 49%. The plurality is it depends. And now familiarity with your programs. I just heard a whole lot of public health type of programs, a big subset of which was housing that Ashley talked about. So that was the exact question down at the bottom. How familiar are you with programs in place to help residents with housing affordability, such as programs such as, that's a typo by me, Section 8 in subsidized housing? And very familiar, and I know what they offer. 1 out of every 6, 16%. Go to the other end of it. That don't know much about them other than they exist and know nothing at all. 33 and 21 adds up to 54. So the majority say I don't know much about them. It's difficult to get that messaging out. Again, I'm looking at Anna and Cassie and Jenny back there, the public health messaging. You know, I had an answer to that question about do your employees do training that came up earlier. I can't remember which gentleman asked it, but he was sitting over here. I bet you do training on cybersecurity, don't you? Because I walked up the stairs and said, think before you click. But I probably need to see that 20 times before I really remember that think not to click, because I'm human and I'm distracted. I'm not a tree. That's the idea of knowing about those programs. It's an uphill battle, but I know you guys are ready for it. 3.0.5.6 is the last one I want to let you know. So you can see blue, light green, green, gray, blue again. There are 5 questions on there. And these are housing challenges. You asked the question as, are you now or have you recently? And the first one is, had difficulty finding suitable housing. 13%, about 1 out of every 7 folks, 729 folks. 1 out of every 7 means over 100 of them said. Now, we did not drill down how long ago was the but not now, but it was recently. Look at the next one. What about feared losing your home? Now 6 and 14 becomes 20. I can only imagine if we did this at this time of year too, when it's starting to, I drove over Tug Hill coming over today, wondering about snow flying. We were doing it at Fair Week when it was gorgeous out, and housing probably isn't as much of an obstacle. I'm guessing that. Have no proof of that. Middle ones, the dark green. Have you ever been homeless? And there was a definition there. Not made by me, but made by the experts sitting behind me. Defined as a lack of fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. 8% said they have been. 1 out of every 12 said that they have been. Are you concerned with it? Homelessness as an issue in your county. Depends upon where you want to draw the line, but very concerned, 14%. Add on the somewhat concerned, that goes up to 40%. Add on the a little concerned, wait a minute, let's look at the other end of the response scale. Let's just look at that right there. 1 out of every 4 says not at all concerned. And then we did ask, what are the largest challenges? And people could choose more than one on there. There were more than those 3. Finally, when we asked Lewis County's role in this, your role, housing policies or programs, those are set up as a Pareto, folks, from left to right. You see the 44 dark blue, 40, 38, down to 22. It means quickly you can read left to right and see the ones that had the most importance. Support and homeowner improvement funding. 44% said very important, and another 30, so 74% said at least somewhat important. Then support in affordable housing projects, and then it became redevelopment of vacant properties. And then finally, there's the other ADU question I couldn't remember. Accessory dwelling unit, I think, is what that stands for. And then we get to 3.0.6. And you're going to see in a moment, Jenny, hopefully you're still here. Yes. Jenny, you're going to see, if you haven't already seen this, I chose a question off of this slide. Forgive me, all of you in the room, for digging deep and drilling down, but I've been at JCC for 41 years. I've been doing this for a long time, and I feel like there are folks who are motivated and interested and care about your communities like this room is full of, that you'll be okay with me drilling down. So the first question is, top 5 types of housing they consider important to develop in our county. You see that's the top left blue one. Not a lot of variation in there, but single family homes is the one that people check the most. And then do you notice for the next 3 beyond it, I hope that's not too small for you to read, but it goes senior, space, senior, senior. There's a senior theme that comes out of there to me amongst your residents, that they're not ignorant of the idea of the importance of senior housing of some type. The one to the next of it in gray, how important do you feel that affordable housing is to the overall health and well-being of the community? Clearly, many of the professionals behind me were instrumental. I didn't write that question. They wanted to learn that. 61%, 3 out of every 5 said very important to me. It's very important to the overall health and well-being of the community. Another 25%, that adds up to almost 90 folks. Jumps out at me is people perceive affordable housing as a priority and important. To look at the census data, didn't tell you that. To look at vacant buildings around here in potential space, it could be Guymo or Bernie Ankar or someone draw you up some renderings. Didn't answer that. It was you folks on your task force or committee or whatever you call that group that said, we want to know what the community thinks. Those gray bars resonated with me. The one to the right, the green ones, what role should the county play? Please notice 62% said you folks should play a leading role. Only 17% said you folks should stay out of it and leave it to the private developers to figure it out and solve. Down at the bottom, they, being the group I worked with, you, I guess, all of you by extension, broke the county into 3 sections. And I know that's really small for those of you in the back to see the towns that are in there, but you've got the northern region, the central region with Montague and Pinckney and Martinsburg and Lowville. And then you've got the southern region, which of course has Lewis and Leiden and Turin. You know that better than I do. The question is, in 2012, the Lewis County Housing Needs, 2022, Lewis County Housing Needs Assessment, it was identified, this is really hard for me to read, that a wide range of housing is in high need. Which areas of Lewis County have the greatest need for additional housing options? Please notice, this was asked, that's everybody all together. That's the whole 729 people. I don't see a huge variation. They essentially say it's the same distribution that says we need it versus we don't need it. I support doing it versus I oppose, whether you put it in the north or the south or the central. That came out of there. I'm assuming to you that resonated as well to you too. I don't know whether you expected it or not, but it clearly came out. And then the last question on the survey was the one that got to the 8 villages I was talking about. So on the left, human services agencies in Lewis County have identified the need for supportive housing, and then they defined it for that question as permanent housing. Permanent apartment for people who need tailored support services to live independently. Would you support this effort that the human service agencies in Lewis County say they have identified? 69 to 8 is kind of, that cannot be random chance of sampling. There just is no such thing as flipping a coin that many times, because support and oppose is like head and tail. You're not going to miss by that, but no, that's resounding. 69 to 8, the support for that type of supportive housing. Now notice when the villages came up, it was a different definition of supportive housing. So when you look at that, if pursued in the future, in which of the following villages do you believe supportive housing should be located in Lewis County, with supporting housing defined as temporary housing for those who are in need of housing? And what I see for those gray bars is it doesn't matter which one of those villages you say, it's a majority. At the Constableville was the lowest at 50%, Lowville the highest at 72%. My last 2 slides, I promise you, are digging deeper. No one in the room, including me, can read that, but that's okay. That's on purpose. What it shows you is right up there is gender, age, education, income. What am I reading over there? What I'm seeing is poverty level. And then what I'm seeing over on the second row across is difficult for me to even read from here. Are you disabled or not? What is your household size? Do you have children in the home? My point is this. The 729 people have been sliced and diced by every possible way you can think of to say that distribution of, please notice the question that I picked for this one was the Jen Jones question. How important do you think that it is to the health and well-being of a community? You might remember, I know it's way small, but what I'm looking at is right there is all participants. There's the 61% and 26%. And I challenge you to look at all the subgroups when you have the time to see where is their variation. Clearly, that's for the math geek. The next slide and last slide is there's the same thing shown visually. And what I'd ask you to do is dark blue is there's the Jenny and Cassie question. How important do you feel that affordable housing is the overall health and well-being? Men, women, ages, look at the dark blue bars. That's very important. Look at the light blue bars. That's somewhat important. And what I want you to notice is look where it is. You don't see any subgroups, no matter how you slice and dice it. So let's look by geography. The people who live in the southern part of the county versus the middle part of the county versus the northern part, again, hardly any variation. I do see 1 town, 2 towns. It's still a majority. I have no idea where District 10 is. I'm probably the only person in this room that does not know where District 10 is. I don't know whether it goes north, south, south, north. It's down south, just short of like going into Port Leiden, maybe down around there or something. But even that group, 51 and 27 still heads up to almost 80%. What we at the center have tried to do is provide for you the data in a way that you don't have to wonder other questions. Great forethought by Jenny and Cassie and the whole crew and the Snowbelt people, and I met other people in survey writing meetings. I said the questions that you ask as demographics at the beginning are the questions that at the end I can subdivide by. If you want to know, do right-handed people think it's more important than left-handed people? The overall health and well-being, having affordable housing, I can't answer for you. But we could have if we would have put, are you right-handed or left-handed on the survey? Trying not to be patronizing there, trying to just basically give you 6 credit hours of a stats class in a half an hour today. And I know I've gone over key takeaways. That's just, I think I hit every single one of them. Those are the current housing situation takeaways. Those are the ones I just went through with the affordable housing takeaways. And that's just, I don't think there's a one of them that I missed. So it's there for your reference. And I couldn't help but show, we also went, that's in the hockey rink, which during that week, do you call it, what do you call that building? The hockey rink. The pavilion. I was in the pavilion next to the inflatable cow, and right there is, see right there's the clipboards in the survey. And if any of you knows Larry Danforth, who works with me at the couch, that's his elbow. But anyways, I thought that's the memory that I have of an incredible study. I hope it helps you, who are the folks who are, I want to say mandated, maybe that's too strong of a word, charged with, expected to. Clearly, housing is an important part of any community. And hopefully this helps you know whether decisions you're making are reflecting the majority or not reflecting the majority in your community. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have on this. I am not lying this time. There are no more slides. It finished with the cow. So I don't know what I do next, Tim or Cassie or Jenny. You're welcome. And
Any questions?
yes, please do feel free to. I know that Mr. Leindecker, Mr. Nortz, and Mr. Nelbeck. I don't know that I've ever met any of you before. I spent a lot of evenings here with Mr. Hathaway, Mr. Burns, and the crew. Yes, Ron used to sit right there usually. Mr. Hathaway used to sit right over here, and he'd slap me in the back. And Ryan, some of you might remember, Pichet would sit over there, and he could only call me coach because I don't know if you remember the story. I met Ryan when he was this big. I was his soccer coach. Obviously, I didn't coach him up very well because he's not a very great player. You can tell the people online that. I'm sorry, what did you say, Mr. Linedecker? Yeah, I know. I seriously did text him and asked him to hop in with me to come over, and he said, I really miss the Lewis County people. They're the best. That's his quote. Maybe he is. I don't know. He's a soccer player, a former soccer player. But if you have any questions, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Yes.
Seen in my district where people will say, yes, I want affordable housing, I want affordable housing. If you ask the question, are you willing to pay more in taxes for that benefit? Then it becomes, well, I'm really not that much. So was there any questions that related back to increased costs?
The only one I can think of, and ladies, please pipe in if there's something I'm forgetting, even though it ought to be right in my short-term memory from going through that, was the, that question on would you be willing to pay a fee for more energy efficient, or was it sustainable?
Sustainable.
It was a sustainable options, but in terms of to fund affordable housing, that was not asked. And you're right, that's a tough nut to crack, because what happens is that there's a benefit to asking. Absolutely, because what you're doing is educating the people as you ask, so they know what they're saying, I support or oppose. So there's a clear benefit. We've got study after study that we've done for different groups that wanted to know, would our members be willing to pay more to be a member of WPBS? Or how much would people be willing to pay for this thing that we're going to do at Cornell Cooperative Extension? So there's a benefit of getting that to help folks like you make a decision. One of the downsides is as soon as you ask that question, it becomes fact in the public's mind. And if they want to know, like, how much? So if you made up, we did it once with Lewis County General Hospital. It was like $30 per $100,000 of tax assessment that you have. And you know what that does with the general person? Goes, whew. They don't know what you're talking to them about. So do we as math geeks have a solution for this? Yes, it's called price point analysis. And it's called the monadic design. And the monadic design, I'm sorry, wow, let me answer your question, okay? We could have asked the question, let me just make it one up. Do you think of this terribly phrased question? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea that your taxes support improvement in affordable housing in district, whatever you're from. And we said, if that was going to be, I'm just making a number up, so this does not become fact, those of you online. $15 per 100,000 assessment you have, or something like that, is your annual increase. Well, then what you do is you take your sample and you randomize it. You randomize the sample into 4 different groups. And for one of the groups, they get that question that says $15. For another group, they get that question, maybe it says $30. For another group, they get the question that says $50. Because you see, if I asked you, would you pay 30, 50, or 15? Human nature is you're gonna say 15. But if you only get monadic, the M-O-N prefix, like monotone, or what else is a mon, that starts with, I don't know. It means one. If you only get one question of it, then we can see the people who got $100 per, is their level of support tremendously less than the people who got $50? We did that for Cornell Cooperative Extension, and they used that to develop their pricing for the food processing facility they're pursuing right now. We didn't think that far ahead, and what it means is you have to get a really big sample size, which we did, 729, because you need to have the subsets that get the different question sufficiently large. Sorry about all the math, but it's fun, and you seem interested when you ask that. So
No, I
thank you.
just feel sometimes people will say, yes, oh, we should do this until it comes out of their pocket, and then they're like, well, no, I don't want to increase the taxes.
Had a study a long time ago for a private school that was the case. Would you pay more tuition for your child to go there? Hell, yeah. Would you pay more for your child if it's $5,000 a year more or something? Becomes no. So that's the it depends idea.
Right.
Well, as you give them a number that it depends on, be careful, because you can establish in their mind a perception of fat there. And that's what the monadic design does, is it gives different options. You look at the price point change. Yes.
Joel, did you ask the question, if affordable housing were available, would you move into it?
I don't think I just went over to that. I don't think so. Great idea, Larry. Definitely, one thing that I feel the pain of you folks.
Along the same line as Jeff, it's 2 separate questions. Do you support affordable housing? Yes. Would you utilize it? I don't know.
It depends, I'm sure. It requires definition, and this group, your employees did a great job of defining, like I tried to overview in there. For this question, supportive housing was defined as. For this question, it was defined as, because there are so many terms in your world of housing. Affordable housing might mean one thing to me and something different to you if we don't define it, so they're on the same page. Yeah. But I think they did a great job of thinking ahead with that. Would have been a good question.
The other thing is, you asked the question, where do they live in? And it turned out that the majority of people live in a single family house. So you asked the question, if affordable housing were built and would you utilize it? That's a total culture shift for
Yeah.
a lot of people.
And
Affordable single-family homes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's yeah.
great observation of it, but yeah. I didn't see any evidence, and again, I would never claim, and no public opinion researcher ever could stand up and claim that they did a study perfectly, because as I said, we're studying humans, and you do your absolute best. But from what I see in that data analysis, I don't see any large resounding resistance to further pursuit of, I think the Jen Jones question, I'm gonna call it, and I don't know if you deserve the credit or not, but I really think it resonated with me, and as people were filling out the survey, that this is about, there's no debate. Folks, for the most part, vast majority of Lewis County residents are darn proud to live here, darn proud of your quality of life, darn proud of the community that you have. That's been true for the 25 years we've been surveying. Well, I think there's nothing in this research that says to me they're not really, really proud and recognizing the importance that one of the things that makes us so happy and functional and capable here is having housing. So I didn't see anything that says, basically, roll up your sleeves and just suck it up and figure it out on your own. I did not see that attitude, that sentiment come out. And again, if you look in the crosstabs, you're going to recognize never before, this was out at Washington State University. I said, never before have I taken a sample and taken a look at the gender, the age, the education, the race, the household composition, the home ownership. All of those things are findable on the US Census, about all 26,000 of you who live here. We can find what the reality is. So we take a sample of 729 of them and I look, did we represent? I don't think I've ever in 200 studies gotten a sample that was as representative of this. We had to very slightly weight the data. Why is that the case? This is the paper I presented. I presented a paper at Washington State and said, everybody loves the sexy high-tech text message push to web, email push to web, call you on your cell phone and you pick it up when you're at the grocery store. But you know what? It's the old school that gets the low-income single mom with 3 kids in a stroller who was at your parade and was at your fair and was willing to fill out the survey. We got these historically underrepresented groups to participate. It was incredible. This is what I was texting Cassie and going, you're not going to believe what's happening, Cassie. They were lining up behind Marissa to fill out the survey. That says to me quality data. Is it perfect? No, I can't say that to you. But I can say that I believe in what we've measured. And I just hope it's in some way hit what your needs are. Other questions?
Do you have any more surveys in the pipeline for Lewis County?
Oh my God, let me think. The next one coming up for me, I have to think out loud here. The next one coming up for me, Ashley, you'll love this, is working with a professor at SUNY Plattsburgh on women's healthcare, specifically menopausal healthcare for Akantra Misra is a professor, you know Akantra. That's going to be the one I'm doing, not Lewis County. Larry is doing one for Thrive that will be surveying in Lewis County. Thrive used to be Credo and Transitional Living Services. Andy's actually doing a study for the Indian River Lakes Conservancy about their water quality. They have 3 of their 18 lakes you can't swim in anymore. So, no.
No, okay, well, what I was getting at, you got such good results at the county fair parade. Come back.
Oh, wait, you know what? Is that your right name tag, Mr. Norris?
Yes, it is.
I told him, I said, the people who I don't know, like, okay, Larry I've met before, so I'll refer to him as Larry, but I don't want to call you the wrong name. So, Mr. Norris, that is awesome and insightful, and I really appreciate you said that, because it's exactly what Larry and Andy and I said. We said, whenever we're surveying in Lewis County, we want a representative sample. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. Your Fair Week is amazing in hitting the whole cross-section of your community and society, which means as a researcher, that's where I want to sample. And we do not have one lined up for there then yet. Well, I came back, for the last time I was in Lowville since then was Cream Cheese Day. And for those of you who are Syracuse fans, football team actually won that day, beat UConn. And I was over at Troy's Brewery watching them beat UConn, but I looked out at the street that day and said, we could be sampling right here. There's lots of people out there. However, there was a difference in, I'm looking at Connor saying, turn it off. One of the other things, let's be real here. When you have no alcohol at your fair, that makes it incredible for us because we've done intercept sampling as people tailgate before the Lady Antebellum concert. We feel like we need a breathalyzer to find out whether we should believe your response. None of that with you here. And so, yes, we're going to be back if we can. I won't wait too long. I can't tell if you're telling me the truth.
All right, thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Good job. Thank you very much. And now we move on to our 2026 budget analysis by County Manager Tim Hunt.
This is not the budget analysis. This is the data analytics that we wanted to kind of dive in a little bit more and what we're going to do to try to help the public understand or to analyze the budget. Okay, this is our website. If you go to the main homepage of the Lewis County website, there have been tabs added down here at the third row. You can click on financial information. That will take you to the tentative budget book, which we did the presentation last month on. Nothing in that book has changed since that presentation. So that is the tentative budget book. And then if you go to the 2026 capital budget plan, that's the one that Brian had given, and nothing has changed in that as well. You can click on this button right here, and this is live on our website right now. This will take you to the data analytics page that we showed you in the budget book. So this is all live. This is 2025. 2026 will appear after the public hearing and after the budget is adopted. So that will show what the final budget adopted is. Budget remaining will be 100%. This is 2025 right now. So we have $24 million left this year in the budget. So the budget was 90.48 million. We spent 66.4 and we have 24.7 million left. It breaks it down by the departments here. Over here is just spending. And when I say spending, that is total spending in each department. And so Department of Social Services has the largest spending. But if you go over on this side, that is a budget breakdown by the taxpayer's contribution. So any state, federal dollars that are coming in against that, we subtract out. So this shows you what the local tax contribution is. This shows you what the total spending is. So we kind of wanted to show it a couple different ways. You can click on payroll here, and that will take you over to all the payroll data for the county departments. This is compensation breakdown by department. You can see the sheriff's has the largest compensation for payroll, then the Department of Social Services and Highway. And it's broken down by FTEs or full-time equivalents per department. Right there, the sheriff has 64.29. Department of Social Services has 60.98, it looks like. County roads is 27.27, and each department there have. This is a year-long graph of that, and what this increase right here is summertime employment. You can see that's the summer months when we start bringing in summer help in Parks and Recs and Highway, and then that drops back down into that number. And then breakdown by department as well here. So, or by the type. So regular pay versus paid time off right here. And then you have overtime right here in this pie chart. And you can click on any one of that and you can look at that. That's by dollars. You can look at it by hours as well. So I encourage people to go to this, play around, go back and forth between the overall budget and the payroll. And then if you see something that you're interested in or you have any questions at the bottom of that page, put in your name, an email address or phone number, and any questions or feedback that you have, and that will come to us. So that is live on the website, and that will give everybody a pretty good handle, or it's a good starting point to start to understand the county budget. Any questions? Okay.
Any questions on that? Thank you, Tim.
Welcome.
And now we'll move on to draft resolutions.
The first one is adopting the 2025 Lewis County Human Services Coordinated Transportation Plan prepared by the Planning and Community Development Department and the Lewis County Transportation Task Force as its updated plan to improve community mobility and quality of life for the residents of Lewis County.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Setting a public hearing for December 18th, 2025 at 10 o'clock a.m. to solicit the views of Lewis County citizens regarding CDBG funding for community development, planning, public facilities, small business, and economic development needs under program year 2025 New York State CDBG funding applications in amounts not to exceed $1 million.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing a renewal agreement from December 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2026 with Swiftly Incorporated at a cost not to exceed $21,763.80 to provide the software services necessary for Lewis County Public Transportation presence on the Transit app.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Reappointing Lehman as a member of the Lewis County Planning Board to serve a 3-year term effective January 1st, 2026 through December 31st, 2028.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Authorizing the appropriation of $28,905 representing the proceeds received from the online auction sale of miscellaneous county equipment and property to the Capital Equipment Reserve account.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
Designating the banks, banking associations, and trust companies as official depositories for Lewis County funds with maximum authorized deposit limits.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried.
And lastly, authorizing the treasurer to make all necessary interfund and departmental budget transfers required to properly close the financial records for the 2025 fiscal year.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, aye. Opposed? Carried. Unless we don't have any motions, no executive session. Unless there's anything else that the committee wants to bring up, I make a motion that we adjourn. Do I get a second? Jeff, all in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned.